Good morning. I'm going to play a piece from a desert. It's called Desert Suite by Carol Close, and the piece that I'm going to play is from Dawn to Dusk, which is basically what it says it is.
Our centering thought this morning. We affirm that every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web, and hence strangers need not be enemies, and that no one is saved until all are saved, where all means the whole of creation. Welcome to our Sunday morning gathering here at Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We're so glad you've chosen to join us today, whether you're here in person or on Zoom. Summit is a liberal religious community bound together by shared principles drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature, science, philosophy, and personal practice. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you're new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit, and would like to know more about us, we invite you to visit our website, summituuf.org, or talk to any of us here this morning. Today, we are fortunate to have Shannyn Allen as our speaker. She is a longtime member of Summit who appreciates Summit's questions about Mother Earth. We have a couple announcements today. Jenny and Margot. Start with Jenny.
Good morning, everybody. Wanted to remind you that next Sunday is the concert that we're sponsoring. It's the first of our, we hope, a series of concerts that the music committee is going to organize. And Joe Ferrara has been here once before, and seemed to be well liked, and he has got a really interesting repertoire and includes sing-alongs and songs that people know and takes requests. And I just was reading his bio, which you can find in the Thursday's little newsletter, that for 30 years or something, he sang the national anthem at the Giants, opening of the Giants games in San Francisco. So that's pretty cool, little detail. Anyway, I'll be selling tickets outside, and tickets are also available online for a little fee, and then I think they'll be available at the door for sure. So it's at 2 o'clock next Sunday, which gives you time to go find some lunch somewhere and come back and enjoy the show. Thank you.
Good morning. Just want to make you aware, it was in the bulletin, but next Saturday, this 27th from 10 to noon is the poetry workshop, the once a month poetry workshop. We'll meet in the library from 10 to noon. It's a welcoming time to come play with words and discover the poet within. Even if you're not a poet, if you're a writer and like to write, playing with poetry, you can find a way to find bounty in fewer words and just have a good time. So we do a lot of creative experiential work, and it's certainly, excuse me, it's a time to, if you have a small piece you want to share, there'll be room to do that. So any questions, you can talk to me after service or call me, but it's next Saturday, 10 to noon in the library. Thank you.
Thank you. We stand upon land that carries the footsteps of many generations of Kumeyaay people, which stretches from the shores of the Pacific Ocean, south to Ensenada, east to the sand dunes of the Colorado River in Imperial Valley, and north to the Warner Springs Valley. We acknowledge that this fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land and honor the spirit and continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. May the light of our chalice give light and warmth to our community when we are joyful and when we are in despair. And may we feel the warmth spread from our circle to wider and wider circles until all know they belong to the one circle of life. As you are willing and able, please stand for the UU hymn and aspiration. From all who dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue. De todos bajo el gran sol, esperanza, fe, amor, verdad y pieza cantando de cada tierra, cada voz. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in fellowship, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Thank you. We will now share a responsive reading where audience participation, you get to read the indented italics portions. Remember the earth, whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind, remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all beings, and all beings are you. Remember you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember, the dance language is, that life is, remember. Thank you. We have a couple joys and concerns this morning. Nancy Merrill asked that we light a candle of sorrow for her brother Brent, who passed away on Thursday night. Our hearts go out to Nancy at this time. And you want to say yours? Come on.
For those of you, like, actually I have my headset on. Is it on, Gabriel? For those of you that don't know, I came home from camp 2 weeks ago, and my dogs were so excited that they knocked me over. And I broke my elbow. So I had surgery Thursday. They put one of my bones back together. It was all in pieces. So hopefully I'm on the healing. So.
Okay. You ready for Time for All Ages? Come on back.
Let's do this again. All right, Gabriel, I got it. I am on pain meds. I'm going to preface this by saying that. It's been a rough couple of weeks. But when I was looking at planning this service with this wonderful topic that Dr. Shannon's going to share with us, I was planning on being up at camp the whole week before, which I did not get to go because obviously I wasn't functional for camp. But one of the things I always do at camp is I always make sure I hug a tree when I'm up there. Has everybody here ever hugged a tree? Has anybody hugged a tree? Yeah, so hugging trees. But there's another expression that's used amongst our Gen Z kiddos is touch grass. You heard that expression, touch grass? So when we get too digitally connected, too outside of our experience as part of nature, they'll say, go touch grass, which I think it's a more contemporary hug a tree, right? And one of the things that I think it's really easiest for us to forget is how connected we are to nature. We're not separate and apart, right? We're part of it. So when you hug a tree, when you touch grass, you get your feet in the dirt, whatever it is that you need to do to make that connection, that is a crucial piece of humanness and of Earth, being part of Earth, because we're all part of this wonderful ecosystem, and you can't separate it, right? We couldn't live without our Earth. So really, save the humans, right? But touching grass and hugging a tree, for me, is a way of just quickly making those connections that we need to make. And sometimes you don't have time to get fancy. Just keep it simple. Hold a rock in your hand. Just make that connection. And remember that we're not separate and apart. We're part of it. We're all siblings together on the planet. So that is my very short Time for All Ages on pain meds for you all today. And I hope you will take some time today to touch grass, hug trees, pick up a rock, connect with nature. And I'm going back because if we have any children show up, we're making fairy gardens today because we felt like that was an appropriate thing. If you want to come back later and help make a fairy garden, you're most welcome to. So, we have a children's song to sing to escort Mary off.
To be kind, three, we help each other, four, such for one is true, five, all people have a say, six, work for a peaceful world, seven, the web of life's the way that will bring us back to me and you, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, so, do.
Sorry, I'm such a mess.
Okay. Our first hymn today, we're having a substitution. We are going to be singing number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth, in the gray hymnal. For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from This reading is by Carol Hipoksky, called A Strong Reverence for Life. Those of us who call ourselves religious humanists have a strong reverence for life. Many of us experience a deep sense of awe before the mystery of life and death, those powers greater than ourselves. We share a respect for science and reason, and we are willing to live with ambiguity, to live without definitive answers. We share a deep concern about injustice and the fate of human life indeed, of all life on this planet, our home, and in the universe. We identify with the human story, even as we recognize it as intimately tied to the story of the rest of the world. My environmentalism and my humanism are inextricably related. My humanism tells me that human life is important and worthy of respect and care. My environmentalism tells me that to be human is to be part of an interdependent circle of all life. It is counterproductive to imagine ourselves as separate. My knowledge of today's world informs me that planet Earth, and thus human life, are in danger because of the great threat of global warming. I want to see life, including human life, preserved and thriving on our planet. My environmental humanism compels me to practice that threatens the survival on the earth. I now invite Shannyn to come on up.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Shannyn Fowl Allen, and I am a female in her 50s with mostly gray hair, wearing a green top today in honor of Mother Earth. I'm a naturopathic physician. If you don't have any idea what that is, you're not alone. Only 2 to 3% of Americans know who we are and what we do. What you do need to know is that our oath includes the environment. I dedicate myself to the service of humanity as a practitioner of the art and science of naturopathic medicine. By precept, education, and example, I will assist and encourage to strengthen their health, reduce risks for disease, and preserve the health of our planet for ourselves and future generations. I will continue to endeavor to improve my abilities. I will conduct my life and practice of naturopathic medicine with integrity and freedom from prejudice. In our practice of medicine, we are conscientious about using our resources wisely. We pull from many historic learnings, such as Native Americans, who believe that the plants are there to heal them. Plants, or botanicals, have a crucial role as caretakers of humans. They sustain life. If you're interested in reading more about this, there's a great book called Braiding Sweetgrass. We're careful not to over-harvest botanicals, and we hold our supplement companies accountable to this. We don't buy from companies who over-craft or over-wildcraft. Part of my duty is to teach. I teach my patients how to prevent risks, teach them how to take care of themselves, their earth, and each other. So today I am here in my teaching role to educate you and hopefully empower you. Environmental medicine is actually very you. Here's one of the missions for the National Association of Environmental Medicine, which provides an incredible amount of resources to providers and patients. Their mission is working toward a world where our health outcomes are not determined by gender, race, sexuality, zip code, or income. Pretty cool, huh? Our biggest climate change problems right now are heat, weather events, and wildfires. Temperature is rising. The World Health Organization says it's the biggest threat to our population. Higher temperatures mean people exercise less, their sleep is worse. Both of these are risk factors for cardiovascular disease, let alone other things. Heat has a negative impact on newborns, We have more preterm births, which raises risk for many things. Occupational hazards. For anyone working outside, children can't play outside as much. Power outages for people who are used to being indoors. We actually have more kidney stones in the heat due to electrolyte imbalance. Highways and industry will plant themselves in lower income locations so they can grow, but they also discharge more chemicals in the area, which increases risk factors for underserved populations. With increase of heat and droughts, there's less rain cycle and water to clean the air and to dilute these chemicals, so it increases the risk even more. Increased production of fungus that causes things like valley fever, which is very common in Arizona, and it's spreading. We also see Lyme disease is just spreading across the US. We see it here. I've diagnosed 3 cases in Ramona, and it used to be just on the East Coast. So we see that heat causes things to spread. It also leads to an increase in vector-borne diseases, such as West Nile. Those that are carried by both ticks and mosquitoes, and things that we don't even see yet. West Nile is at an all-time high. Warmer water promotes algae blooms, which causes things like dermatitis, eye irritation, respiratory problems. Viruses grow better, as well as bacteria, like Salmonella and E. coli in hotter temperatures. Heat depletes biodiversity of healthy bacteria, not only in our gut, but in the environment. Extinct species of deer in Africa was determined to be related to viral takeover in their microbiome. There's a great NPR clip about this that I heard about 10 years ago. Just 1 to 2 degrees hotter in your gut can make those changes. Let's talk a little bit about weather events. Those include cyclones, floods, storm-related disasters. Patients with cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, the research shows that they fare worse, and they have higher risks during disasters. They can't make it to their appointments, they can't pick up their prescriptions, and oftentimes there's a raw material shortage or a manufacturing problem to make the medications that they might need. Florida, during a hurricane, it's not unusual for an elderly patient to go to the emergency room just so that they'll have a place to be during a hurricane. Heavy rain, flooding, and high temperatures are all linked to an increase in gastrointestinal infections. We actually saw a rise when we had flooding here of CDC-reported gastrointestinal infections from septics overflowing. Heavy downpours of flooding spread and overflow sewer lines and septics into fields where food is growing, and we're getting more food recalls than ever. You may have noticed there's a lot of food recalls for listeria. While the water pools, we're more likely to have those bacteria growing in our produce. Heavy rains and downpours lead to flooding, which flushes fertilizers and animal waste into rivers and lakes and oceans as well. Mold spores are incredibly resistant and can live for years and just wait for wetness, and then they blossom. Mycotoxins are what mold produces. The mold itself is not so irritating. It's the mycotoxins they put off, and they're like little shards of glass that will transfer through your body, cause all kinds of problems. The research shows kidneys are affected, gastrointestinal, and your nervous system sheath are some of the most common things that we see affected. And a lot of mysterious illnesses that lead to gastrointestinal and neurological symptoms. Mold toxicity is really hard to diagnose. And then there's a lot of power outages when we have weather issues. Let's talk about wildfires, something that's near and dear to us. Nutrients are depleted in the soil when we have fires, and when we have droughts, we already have a risk factor of depletion, and that means oxygen. Plants don't produce as much protein if they don't have oxygen, which means they can't take up the nutrients and food is less nutritious. And we've actually seen a trend of malnutrition, especially in our most vulnerable. So when we have a wildfire, everything burns. Things that aren't meant to burn, batteries and paint and plastics, all kinds of things. Causes polluted air, which increases the incidence of heart attacks, lung conditions, and other things. Things released in the air, such as nanoplastics, are being really well studied nowadays. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that people with microplastics or nanoplastics in their carotid artery tissues were twice as likely to have a cardiovascular event, such as a heart attack, a stroke, or die from any other cause over the next 3 years than people who had none. Also directly from the paper, nanoplastics are the most worrisome plastics of human health, experts say, at 1,000th of the average width of a human hair. The minuscule bits can migrate through the tissues of the digestive tract or lungs into the bloodstream. From there, nanoplastics invade individual cells and tissues and major organs, potentially interrupting cellular processes, depositing endocrine disrupting chemicals such as bisphenols, phthalates, flame retardants, heavy metals, and so forth. It also really affects our immune system to do their job, and the cells are crowded by these pollutants in the cell. Professor of biology, Dr. Philip Landrigan, commented on the study, although we do not know what other exposures may have contributed to the adverse outcomes among patients in this study, the finding of microplastics and nanoplastics in plaque tissue itself is a breakthrough discovery that raises a series of urgent questions. Should exposures to microplastics and nanoplastics be considered a cardiovascular risk factor? And I will remind you that heart disease is the #1 killer of women in every age range, more so than all of the cancers combined together. So it's a big deal. So what's the answer? The answer is multifold. As Casey mentioned in her sermon in Interdependence, she said it's about the questions, not the answers. It's about the soil of your mind. Can you stretch your mind, stretch your brain to ask the questions? Really, you can see our health is dependent on it. I'm really passionate about helping patients find answers. I really want them to have some evidence to help them be motivated to make the change. There's a huge review on studies demonstrating the harm that our immune system and that's done to our immune system and our microorganisms by something called glyphosate. Anybody heard of that? Glyphosate, yeah. Yes, it's Roundup. And other glyphosate-based herbicides on health and immunity. So that means your scavenger cells that go around your body trying to take out the trash are not able to function properly. Not only are they not able to function, but they're not able to cover as much territory. And that is bad on so many levels. Not only detox, but being able to allow your immune system to know who the enemy is and how to solve the problem. Bacteria is also becoming resistant to glyphosate, which means we have to use more and more. And molecular mechanisms underlying those resistance in bacteria will affect our ability to recognize other things too. So the literature shows us a lot of connections. BPA correlates with obesity. Persistent organic pollutants, also known as POPs, are linked to infertility. Heavy metals linked to Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's. Cadmium is associated with breast cancer risk. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are linked to cancer. Phthalate exposures associated with diabetes. Lots of depressing things. But I do have to tell you, I went to a conference in Chicago this week, and there was a fascinating lecture by an herbalist who talked about the botanicals and the research that's coming out on the neuroprotective effects of a lot of different big words such as polyphenols, antioxidants, flavonoids, all these words that we used to hear from Neil, who was a plant master trying to encourage us to get more plants into our diet and our world. And we also had a lecture on eating in season, and they did some research on how food that is in season, such as apples in the fall, have twice as many nutrition elements and value than apples that are eaten out of season. So eating in season is a huge way of improving your antioxidant level. They're also having smaller studies done that show if you chop carrots, you release more nutrition than if you just eat the carrot straight. And if you shred it, it releases even more. So something about the process of the vegetable dying will increase its nutrient value. Isn't that fascinating? So how can we reduce our risks? One thing is to think about getting ahead of our exposures. And so I'm often talking to patients about decreasing the risk and being healthy, making a plan. Being healthy is not an accident, it's an intention. Also encourage you to learn about your microbiome. An interdependent microbiome includes our gut and our environment. Our microbiome is in our gut, and there's miles and miles of surface area where bacteria lives. My GI professor used to say, our whole goal in life is to carry around bacteria. Just make sure it's the right stuff. Really protecting that microbiome is important. Longevity is connected to microbiome. We're finding that Alzheimer's is connected to certain bacteria that's found in the gut. Almost every disease process we're finding is connected to some sort of microbiome disruption. The research is exploding on the microbiome. So learn more about your microbiome. Know that your immune system is produced there, your neurotransmitters are produced there. 80% of your serotonin receptors, your happy molecules, are in your gut. So your microbiome is super important. Avoid antibiotics if at all possible. They take down your microbiome to 2 to 9 species, and it takes 9 months to 2 years to rebuild, to just get 2 or 3 more species back. And really, we want more like 50 to 200. People who are centenarians who live into their hundreds, they have over 100 to 200 different kinds of species in their gut. Increase your antioxidant levels. Veggies, 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 and fruits. As close as you can to the source, so as live as you can. Eat the color of the rainbow. Lots of different specific nutrients. For example, tomatoes have lycopene. We all want a little bit of lycopene in our diet daily. Great for your eyes. Take care of your living spaces. Mold is more of a problem than you realize in this part of the country. I just diagnosed a 9-year-old with mold toxicity after going through a whole endocrine workup, trying to figure out why she was obese. It's a devastating diagnosis because it's very hard to treat. But one of the stories her mom told me was she loves karate, so she'd go in for her classes and she'd do her kicks real high. And then after about 30 seconds, she wouldn't be able to kick her leg as high. That was because her mitochondria was just depleted, and the mold was taking the place of what the functional mitochondria is supposed to be doing. So I'm glad we have answers for her, and we can move forward. But we really do need to pay attention to our living spaces and keep them healthy. How can we reduce our exposure? This is where the questions come in. Can we eat more fresh foods instead of canned foods or beverages? By the way, the safest plastic containers appear to be made out of those from resins with the numbers 2, 4, and 5, not including plastic wrap. Can we use stainless steel or glass containers, silverware or bottles instead of plastic? Can we use linen, cookie sheet, or wax wax fabric instead of shrink wrap and cellophane? Can we filter our water better? Can we drink tea made from bulk instead of using tea bags or using silk tea bags? It's about the journey. It's about asking the questions. Putting basic science to work for the benefit of us, our health, our neighbors, our environment, our Mother Earth. I have some resources for you. I have a lot of resources, and I brought a book in case you're interested in looking, and you can take a picture of some of the resources I've put together. We want to work toward a world where our health outcomes are not determined by our gender, race, sexuality, zip code, or income. We want to alleviate as much suffering as possible. Be brave. This is a lifestyle, a way of living. It's about the journey, not the destination. Be aware, reduce your health risk, and reduce exposure for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannyn. We will now take our morning offering. Your Sunday morning offering is a gift that provides Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship the financial resources, in addition to our regular pledges, to help us build a better world together. Any gift is welcome. The link for those of you on Zoom can be found in the chat, as well as the virtual order of service. Please select the Sunday plate option to allocate your donation to the appropriate account.
The offertory, I'm sorry, because I had planned it for this holistic, but it's 2 pieces that were composed by a Chinese composer. Anyway, so I'm going to play for you the Arabesque by Schumann in C major.
you, Karen. Our final hymn today is number 1064, Blue Boat Home in the Teal Hymnal. Please stand as you're willing and able.
Oh, below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now. Harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite seas before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat
Thank you. After we extinguish the chalice and have our closing circle song, we'll take a 5-minute break and then come back together to ask Shannyn lots of questions and to talk about today's service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So please stand and join hands for our closing circle song.